didn't hesitate. He didn't ask for a lawyer. He didn't ask what evidence they had against him. He simply leaned forward and began confessing. Not to one murder, not to two, but to dozens, then hundreds. He gave them names, dates, places. And at first, investigators believed they had caught the most prolific serial killer in American history. But as the confessions piled up, they slowly realized something terrifying. The man who never stopped talking was telling them nothing at all. This isn't just the story of a killer who lied. This is the story of a system that wanted the lies to be true. A system that, in its rush for answers, ended up burying the truth forever. Henry Lee Lucas was a product of a violent and broken home, born into unimaginable neglect. With an abusive mother and an absent father, his childhood was a catalog of trauma. By the time he was a teenager, crime wasn't an act of rebellion. It was simply his routine. He drifted from town to town, committing petty offenses, spending time in and out of institutions. He learned how the system worked from the inside. But most importantly, he learned what people in authority wanted to hear. He became an expert at reading a room, at understanding what would get him a cigarette, a meal, or just a moment of attention. He learned to be whatever people needed him to be. And when police finally arrested him for the last time, he was ready to give them exactly what they were looking for. In 1983, Lucas was picked up on a simple weapons possession charge. During the initial questioning, almost casually, he confessed to a murder, then another, and another. The investigators in the room were stunned. Here was a man seemingly unprompted, solving some of their coldest cases. He offered up details that seemed to line up, giving them names to attach to long unsolved crimes. The news spread like wildfire through law enforcement agencies across the country, and Lucas kept talking. Why? Because every confession brought him rewards, better treatment in jail, more food, an endless supply of cigarettes. But most of all, it brought him attention and a sense of purpose he had never known. For the first time in his life, Henry Lee Lucas was somebody. He was the center of an international investigation, and he loved it. Detectives from all over began lining up to interview him. Lucas claimed responsibility for murders in Texas, Florida, Michigan, California, and all across the Midwest. A special task force, the Lucas Task Force, was created just to manage the sheer volume of his confessions. Hundreds of cold cases were marked closed. Families who had waited years for answers were told their loved one's killer had finally been caught. The investigators were praised as heroes in the media. The task force was hailed as a revolutionary success in policing. It seemed too good to be true, and it was. A few journalists and independent investigators started noticing that something didn't add up. The timeline of his supposed killing spree was not just improbable, it was physically impossible. Henry Lee Lucas, the man claiming to have crisscrossed the country on a years-long murder spree, wasn't actually traveling. Journalists began digging into records and discovered glaring contradictions. On a day, Lucas claimed to have killed someone in Florida. Employment records showed he was working a manual labor job in Texas. On a date, he confessed to a murder in California. Jail records proved he was incarcerated in a completely different state. He claimed to be in 2, sometimes 3 different states on the very same day. The timeline completely collapsed under the slightest scrutiny. He was either in prison, in the hospital, or had verifiable alibis for the times of many of the murders. Yet, astonishingly, the confessions continued. and police departments, eager to clear their books, kept recording them, kept accepting them, and kept closing cases. Behind the closed doors of the task force, doubts that had been whispers were now growing into serious concerns. Some detectives began to realize the truth. Lucas wasn't leading them. They were leading him. They would show him crime scene photos, letting him see the murder weapon or the state of the victim before he confessed. They asked leading questions that fed him the details he needed to sound credible. Was she wearing a red dress, Henry? Did you use a knife like this one? The confessions were no longer a tool for solving crimes. They were actively contaminating them. The process became a self-fulfilling prophecy, but admitting the mistake publicly was unthinkable. The political and professional fallout would be catastrophic. So quietly, law enforcement began retracting the cases, not with press conferences, but with hushed phone calls and discreetly updated files. The public was left to believe a lie. But by then, the damage was already permanent. The system, desperate for a monster, had created one. For the families of the victims, the nightmare was far from over. Years after being told they had closure, they learned the devastating truth. The man who confessed was a fraud. Their sense of justice had been built on a fiction. The cases were reopened, but decades had passed. Evidence was lost, memories had faded, and the trails of the real killers had gone cold. Justice had been delayed, and in many cases it meant justice was denied forever. As for Lucas, his usefulness had run out. The attention he craved vanished. The cigarettes and special meals stopped coming. He was no longer the center of the universe. He was just another inmate, isolated and ignored. He tried to recant his confessions, telling reporters he was a liar, but no one was listening anymore. He'd been silenced by his own irrelevance. His one capital murder conviction was eventually commuted to a life sentence by the governor, who cited the overwhelming doubt surrounding his guilt. So what was this whole spectacle really about? Henry Lee Lucas wasn't confessing to murders. He was confessing to what a broken and desperate system rewarded. He was an empty vessel, and he filled himself with the stories that brought him attention, validation, and a strange kind of structure to his chaotic life. And the investigators, overworked, underfunded, and under immense public pressure to solve horrific crimes, accepted those stories, not because they were true, but because they were convenient. They offered easy answers to impossibly difficult questions. The Lucas case became a dark mirror, reflecting the systemic flaws in the justice system, the hunger for quick resolutions over hard truths. We are taught that a confession ends a mystery, that when someone admits their guilt, the story is over and the truth is revealed. But the case of Henry Lee Lucas proved something far darker. It showed that sometimes a confession doesn't reveal the truth. Sometimes it buries it so deep that it can never be found again. And because the wrong man talked too much, and because the right people were too eager to listen, there are real monsters who got away with murder, their crimes still unsolved, their victims still waiting for justice. Thanks for watching. If this story fascinated you, don't forget to like and subscribe for more deep dives into the cases that challenge everything we think we know.